Ladies and gentlemen, it is my extreme pleasure to be part of this cohort with prominent thinkers, academics, and strategists, and I am grateful for this opportunity to express my thoughts. Every few decades, a major transformation happens when the human society rearranges itself and its basic concept of values, worldviews, social, economic, and political structures. There is one such transformational shift that is currently underway. It's called Anthropocene, a new geographic epoch ushered in by human activity and proving lethal to the planet. Earth has lived through 5 mass extinctions, all aided by asteroids, albeit the one that was caused by climate change when the planet warmed up by 5 degrees. All these extinctions acted like an evolutionary reset when new life originated later. But we are now approaching a sordid reality where we humans are accelerating climate change faster and unlike any other thing the planet has ever witnessed in its ontological history. And we do not know whether it is heralding the end of human future on our planet or just like the past, it is just an ecological course correction. Bottom line, it does not look good for us. Officially, ladies and gentlemen, we have entered an uncharted territory where we humans are directly in the assault lines of nature. COVID was the first of such nature-induced public health disaster, and unpredictable weather occurrences currently rampaging throughout the global geographies are the forewarnings. Natural disasters have now moved from its freak and once-in-100-year event categories to a more quotidian nightmare, a regular feature of our existence on this planet. Let me clarify at this juncture that I am not climatizing any natural disaster event. There is no such thing as climatization. Think of it as this visual. We are now precariously perched on a very wobbly plank on the edge of the world, where a gust of wind, think of it like an earthquake, a heat wave, hurricane, drought, flash floods, and forest fires as the equivalents of that gust of wind. And now, that will decide our fate on that thin plank of wood. These natural calamities will now acquire biblical proportions, weaponized by the climate system that is at war with us. At least 40 countries in Europe, North America, Asia, Oceania, and Africa were hit by the devastating extreme natural disasters according to a report till July this year. In India, one extreme event happened every month in 2018 and 2019 and 2020. And 2020 was dubbed as the most climate changed and extreme weather year ever in its geographical history. 2021, by the way, is making 2020 look positively idyllic. In terms of economic fallout, US taxpayers paid an extra $99 billion last year, and 3 of the world's costliest 10 disasters occurred in 2017. Hurricanes Harvey, that cost $96.9 billion, Maria, that cost $69.4 billion, and Irma, that cost $58.2 billion. India lost $87 billion last year, and the annual bill of 2021 is still to come in. To give you an idea about our vulnerability, according to the National Disaster Management Authority, around 40 million hectares of land in India is exposed to floods. That is around 12% of the total land area of India. 68% of our land is vulnerable to droughts, landslides, and avalanches. 58.6% mass is earthquake prone, and tsunamis and cyclones are a regular phenomena for 5,700 kilometers of the 7,516 kilometer long coastline. Such vulnerable conditions have placed India amongst the top disaster prone countries. According to one report, more than 75% of Indian districts, which are home to over 638 million people, are extreme climate event hotspots. It is also critical for me to mention to my audience that extreme climate events have a cascading wave of violence and all forms of deprivation and degradation associated with it. As David Wallace Wells sums up, Climate change is not a discrete clue at the scene of the crime. Not one hurricane, one flash flood at a time. It is a global conspiracy hiding in our decreasing crop yields, hunger, starvation events, and mounting malnutrition patterns, migrations, economic systems, increasing public health risks, and domestic violence, civic unrest, etc., etc. If this is what you do not call the climate emergency situation, then what? Ladies and gentlemen, we need a reimagination of our disaster resilience and emergency response, and we need it fast. COVID has shown us that our disaster resilience needs to be upgraded to deal with the 21st century challenges and catastrophes of the scale unimaginable before. How do we do this? We as governments need to invest heavily in building an extensive climate risk atlas, mainstreaming climate risk assessments across all sectors. Our weather forecasting system is one of the finest in the world, but we need to add in the volatility and complexities of climate calculus to it. In Meghalaya, as we are in the midst of creating a mitigation and adaptation plan, we are obsessively brainstorming on disaster resilience and cross-pollinating different ideas and technologies from multiple countries and sectors. Infrastructure also has to be recalibrated to disaster response, and we need to look at innovative financial instruments or insurances against these unpredictable, volatile natural disasters. I have already mentioned in many of my talks, we are building a biodiversity heat map for mapping and assessing the value of our forests and browsing through the various artificial intelligence technologies that could forewarn us against forest fires. We need the same sort of heat maps for disaster-prone areas in India to predict these extreme weather events and a fleet of quicker and decentralized emergency responses. I was reading somewhere about an MIT project called Project Underground, which looks at microbial science and public sewage systems, gutters I mean, to predict the virus outbreaks and pandemics. What could give us more accurate micro health profiles than our garbage bins and wastes? It is this kind of imagination mixed with intelligence, or in other words, system innovation, that is needed to counter the threat of extreme weather events in disaster responses. Community preparedness is also a very critical paradigm. We all have seen the power of decentralized governance in COVID, and I was very pleased to hear that the state of Orissa has introduced disaster management in their school and college curriculum for building a robust last-mile literacy and response to natural disasters. In Meghalaya, we have started a climate change Chopal. It is a grassroots movement where our government officials meet with headmen, villagers, and community leaders to have conversations and raise awareness about the climate change and related disaster risks. The future of governance and disaster response is therefore participatory. This is the most prominent mantra that I have learned from studying Japan's world-class model of disaster preparedness. Triggered by a sobering realization of the March 2011 Tohoku Earthquake, the Japanese government sought to plug its capability gap through an unprecedented drive to harness all aspects of society. A three-word mantra coined because of this event, Jijo, Kyojo, Kojo, which in other words means self-help, mutual help, and government help, became the central concepts of emergency management planning. In the end, my humble submission is this. While the world clamors, polarizes, and seethes over acknowledging climate change as a fossil-fueled past legacy, and many developing countries and states like us lose our voice over the persistent environment apartheid and climate justice, let us at the same time get down to our policies, implementation playbooks, and start plotting and actionalizing our existential escape from this impending catastrophe. Yes, we are far from this goal, but there has to be a start. We need to know that the future is here and we need to act now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.